right. I'm Steve Hostler. I'm the assistant governor for Area 13, which your club is a member of. I'm a member of the Elyria Rotary Club, past president, current secretary. I'm a former AG back in like 2018, 19, and I also chaired the District 6600 speech contest for several years. So, without further ado, I'm going to introduce current District Governor Pam Brumbaugh to you. She is District Governor for the Rotary year 2025-2026. Pam has been a committed Rotarian since 2007 in her hometown of Sandusky, Ohio. Professionally, she's a licensed social worker with a master's degree in nonprofit management and leadership and a certified dementia practitioner and trainer. She brings over 30 years of leadership experience working with nonprofits and vulnerable populations. Earlier in her career, Pamela, served as a director of the Erie County Victim Assistance Program, where she worked with victims of violent crimes, expanded the staff from 1 to 8, and built a strong core of volunteers. She also developed and implemented new support programs while working with a local domestic violence shelter. Since 2015, Pamela has worked alongside her husband, Michael, at Brumbaugh Estate Planning and Elder Law, supporting families navigating memory-related issues and helping lead the firm's growth in client services. Throughout her career, Pamela has held leadership positions on numerous community boards and is currently active with both the Alzheimer's Association and her local community foundation. In Rotary, Pamela served as club president for the Sandusky Club in 2016, 2017, their club's program chair, and helped launch a membership orientation committee and a lasting literacy project for newborns in partnership with the Sandusky Library and Firelands Hospital. She also chaired the club's scholarship committee and led 2 diaper drives for Heartbeat. At the district level, she's chaired the grants committee for 2 terms. She served as assistant governor for Area 12 for 2 years. She's a 7-time Paul Harris Fellow and has attended 4 Rotary International conventions and multiple zone events. Pamela leads with courage and compassion, reflecting the 2025-2026 Rotary International theme, Unite for Good, and embracing the spirit of ROAR, a call to be bold, to speak up, and to lead with impact. Her Rotary journey is fueled by service, strengthened by collaboration, and grounded in a belief that together we can create a future that's more inclusive, compassionate, and strong. So with that, I'll introduce you to District Governor Pam Brumbaugh. Take it
Thank
away.
you so much, Steve. Thank you, everyone. So certainly, thank you, Eloisa, and Cham. It was great to meet with your board first and to hear all the great things that you're doing. Again, and I'm just amazed. You've got when I look around my Zoom, all ages, all backgrounds, all kind of intentionally coming together to make your communities better places. So for that, I truly commend you for that. So kind of before I start, I like to ask 2 questions. So maybe you guys can put your answers in the chat. But the first question is, why did you join Rotary? So I don't know if anybody joined Rotary because their boss told them that they had to back in the day. Somebody invited you, liked community service.
I can start and say that I joined Rotary because I had a direct, impactful experience with Rotarians back in 1990. They went to the town that I lived and they did a primary eye care clinic. And I just fell in love with Rotary because of the service project and the wonderful and amazing work that they were doing to support people that were either blind or had trouble. That grew into a beautiful, it extended into a beautiful project, and it's been there for the past 20 some years, 28, and now they run a clinic and they continue doing this work, and it's expanded to include other specialties. That's why I joined Rotary. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm looking at all kinds of things, a lot of stuff about doing good things in the world and just some exposure to Rotary. But more importantly, why do you stay in Rotary? Especially when you think about the virtual, because people hate Zoom at this point. So why do you continue to stay? Do you have fun?
Please unmute your microphones and we have so many wonderful stories and please share why.
But a lot of people stay relationships, perfect, having a good time. So it's the fellowship, the fun, and making our communities a better place. The more typical reasons that I hear from people. Obviously, there's a multitude of there. But certainly what keeps you here, what keeps you coming back to Rotary to do all of those great projects that you're involved in, to make a difference in the various communities, is truly where the heart of where Rotary lives. So I tell my Rotary story. I didn't come to Rotary by choice. When I became the executive director of United Way back in the day, they said, "And you will join Rotary." I was kind of like, "What's a Rotary?" I had a rough idea. We had Rotary, we had Lions, we had Kiwanis, so I knew that they were service clubs. But we really wasn't sure what the connection was. And they're like, so you can go to Rotary and there you will meet, the head of the hospital and the head of Cedar Point and the superintendents of the schools and various business owners. And we need you to go in and, work on the campaigns and raise money for, all of the, just to kind of raise money so we could do all the projects and programs that United Way typically does. So I started going to Rotary and hanging out with my friends and kind of sitting at the same table at lunch every week. And eventually, some of the veteran members had come up to me and said, "Well, you work for that nonprofit, and we think you give money to like 30 organizations. So don't be walking them through here. We're not all about that. We give our money to where we give our money to, and don't come in here asking for money." So I'm kind of feeling like a conflict. On one hand, my board's paying for me to go to Rotary to make connections and network. And on the other hand, I'm told not to talk about my day job. So like, okay. So I just kind of go to Rotary every week, eat lunch, and have a good time with my friends. But eventually I was asked to sit on the scholarship committee. So I sat on that for some time. I was eventually asked to chair the scholarship committee. I was started to be asked to help out with some of our fundraisers. About that time, we were doing our big 3-day poker challenge. So I was asked to coordinate the volunteers, make sure they were trained, sign in, sign out, all those things volunteers need to do. But through that process, I was also getting to know some of my fellow Rotarians a lot better than what I had. A lot more chatting with them and just kind of building those friendships. I was also kind of took the opportunity of having my Rotary membership and going and visiting other clubs either throughout my county or in the communities next to me to see what else was going on and just to kind of build some of my relationships that way. So I could kind of see what Rotary was doing in my backyard a little bit, so to speak. And then eventually I was asked to join our board. And then once you're on the board, we know what happens, right, Eloisa?
Yes.
Kind of like, and we need a club president, right? So one of the cool things our club does is they provide a stipend to the incoming board president to go to the Rotary International Convention. And for me, that convention was going to be in Seoul, South Korea. My husband raises his hand and says, "Not on my bucket list, happy to go with you." So off we went. It was our first international trip, so that part made it truly very exciting. But then secondly, just to be surrounded by 30,000 plus Rotarians, many of them in their native clothing, speaking their native language, using translators so we can all communicate with each other. And just hearing people talk about Rotary and all the great things Rotary does. And so while we talked about our successes, we kind of also talked about our challenges, which really isn't a whole lot of different what we talk about today. Membership, clubs, that sort of thing. But then even more exciting for me, if that wasn't exciting enough, was going to the House of Friendship. So if you've ever been to a larger Rotary event, there's either a House of Friendship or a hub. And it has an area, first of all the fellowship groups. So Rotary has, they probably have a cruising fellowship group. I wouldn't be surprised, but we have a wine fellowship, and we have, a bourbon fellowship and an RV fellowship and a motorcycle fellowship and a skiing fellowship. Just any opportunity, anything you can think, any pastime where you can get together with other Rotarians from around the world and enjoy your hobbies. They also have the action groups. So, we talk about the Rotary Action Group, for clean hands or clean water, sanitation, mental health, various issues dealing with that way. But lastly, the other part of that for us was then going to the part of the House of Friendship to see what Rotary clubs from around the world were doing to support their community. And I'd been with my husband's office about a year at that point, starting to work more with people with Alzheimer's and dementia. Bless you, Steve. And just, so I could kind of see what that impact was. So when we walked into that part of the House of Friendship, we saw 6 or 7 booths of what people, what different clubs were doing around the world to address either doing research for Alzheimer's and dementia, what their clubs were doing to support either offering respite or different services or programs to help those families. And my husband looked at me and said, I thought all Rotary cared about was polio. I said, no, I kind of did too. Shame on me for not reading my Rotary magazine very much back in the day to see exactly what it was doing. But just to see all of that, and then to be able to walk through that whole area of the House of Friendship and, see what clubs were doing, for kids with cleft palates. And I've spent a lot of my career working with, women and children in vulnerable situations. So to see what we're doing, those clubs were doing to address problems like human trafficking, programs, just lost my train of thought. For me as a social worker and working with a lot of folks who are struggling in poverty in our own community, but to also learn too in times like 2016, there's still young girls who can't go to school 1 week out of the month because of their menstruation cycle and they don't have access to clean sanitation or hygiene. So just kind of amazing to me. And I had decided, that Rotary was something I definitely want to be a part of. Not only can I help people in my own community, but much like you guys already know, that impact that we have when we all work together and we support the foundation, what we can bring to people from abroad and help some of those other really struggling communities. So if I hadn't drank the Kool-Aid before I was president, definitely did by the time I came back. So when we talk about Rotary, we talk about, this year's theme is Unite for Good, and then I talk about the power to roar. When I think about Unite for Good, it's really not just a motto, but I think it's a mindset as well as a movement. It means we really don't have to agree on everything to work together, but it means we bring our differences to the table and we can use them to build on something better. It means we lead with service and we leave our egos at the door. So Unite for Good really reminds us that Rotary is not just a solo act, but it's a symphony of service powered by everyday people who can do extraordinary things together. And then when I think about ROAR, as Eloisa knows, I spent, the previous last year having the opportunity to meet with all the incoming presidents. And part of that was for training, but also to give them a safe space to talk about their concerns and their anxieties and some of the things they were worried about becoming an incoming president. Sometimes we forget because we're kind of successful and leader in our day job or profession or vocation. But when walking into somebody new, there's still some anxiety that comes with that. And some of our incoming presidents would talk about things like, what if I forget to do something? What if I forget to ring a bell? What if I want to make a change? What if at my board meeting, I don't know how to make a motion, or if I get to ask for a motion, or what are Robert's rules? And just to really have, a place where they can talk about that and nobody, is going to judge them. I'm a big fan of Katy Perry, and one of her songs is Roar. And I really think Roar is all about finding your voice. So as I was preparing for the President-elect's training, I really wanted something to kick off that event so that they could just kind of get them excited and think, hey, anybody, we can all do this. And Roar is definitely about speaking up for your club, for your community, and certainly for those who can't speak up for themselves. It's also about bold leadership courageous conversations, and having confident action. So we talk about we're not here to whisper change, but we're here to roar it, so to speak, into reality. Because change is going to happen no matter what. So as your district governor, I work real hard to be clear. The district's not here to tell clubs what to do. The district is here to support clubs, to help the clubs be the best version of the club that you can possibly be. And we know that communication of clubs have to flow both ways. So I was talking about, it's not like the district here and clubs are here, but we have to work together because without members and clubs, we won't have a district. There's no need for us to be here. What does that look like? How can we align there? And I truly believe anybody could be sitting in my chair today. Anybody can be a district governor. The only difference is somebody asked me and I raised my hand and said yes. And for 1 year, I get to lead 2,700 plus Rotarians in our district. And then we talk about continuity because Catherine will come behind me and she's going to add on that and Lee behind her and add on that. Because the idea is we're not here to make huge change, but we're here to start little changes to make our district better. And we talk about things like continuity and some of that stuff. And again, think about like your club presidents. You have a succession plan, so you're all really working together. And again, I remember being that, young Rotarian and they would say, well, gee, district governor is coming next week. It's our worst attended meeting. And you really don't need to come because all they do is yell at the board and stuff and say, hey, here's all the things you did wrong. Here's what you need to do this year. And they're like, and what's even worse is next year somebody new is going to come in and say, yeah, those rules got whatever that person asked you to do, we're not doing because this year this is going to be our focus. So really kind of shifting away, wanting to do better than really wanting to make the district connect with the clubs. So everything we do this year will really be grounded in the idea of uniting for good and then powered by the courage to roar. And we'll focus on three primary goals, nothing that you haven't heard of before. But the first is growing clubs. We need more clubs. We lost 3 clubs last year. And in talking to some of the assistant governors, we have some struggling clubs. We need to have clubs be where the people are. They're going to, and as you all know, clubs are not going to look the same as they did previously. And we really need to be more creative about what are those formats. It's going to be more satellite clubs, cause-based clubs, evening clubs. We have breakfast clubs. We have Rotary on the Road clubs. We have clubs that meet breakfast one week, lunch one week, and a social the next week. And then I've seen I was really surprised at the number of clubs who are still offering the virtual Zoom option. Again, for those members who can't make it to the meeting, they can still kind of Zoom in and at least be able to listen and see what's going on within their clubs. So we need to be, when we had the Zone Institute training the first week of September, kind of what we're hearing is that there's some speculation that the traditional noon club in about 10 to 15 years will be the exception and not the rule. Because it doesn't going to work for everybody's schedule. We have a lot of competition for our time. Sometimes it's harder to get out of work. Everybody's looking for that balance. I kind of joke that we may end up like with a Saturday morning parents group while the kids are watching. I don't know if they watch cartoons anymore, but that there's, they're all sitting there. The kids are in one area and the parents are in another area doing a service project for things that they believe in to support their community. And why could that be a club for Rotary? And then, of course, we talk about, increasing and retaining membership. I talk a lot about intentionality. We really need to be intentional about not only getting our members and new people in the door, but how do we keep the members? Because it doesn't do any good to have a new member come in and then somebody else walk out. And I certainly congratulate, Dave and Wendy for being here tonight instead of, having fun somewhere. But just really says, what that value of Rotary is. And I think what I've seen with your club and in chatting with a few of you and talking to Louisa, you guys are very intentional. You really think about, the kind of events you're going to have and how you're going to be able to keep together. And maybe that's something that when we meet together every day, we kind of forget. I think I joked with, I talk about my own family. If we don't plan a family dinner at the end of, this month's family dinner, we're not going to have family dinner next month. because time's just going to march away and it's going to fall by the wayside. So how can we be intentional with our membership? Are we asking our new members what they enjoy? Are we making sure that we're listening to them and getting them involved and engaged? Do we know what engagement even looks like? Because I think a lot of times people think engagement means you're just coming to a meeting. And sometimes people can't come to that meeting, but are they still supporting your foundation? Are they supporting the International Foundation? Are they still, coming to your fundraisers and volunteering, for those projects that you're doing? It just might, so if they're doing those things, they're still engaged on some level. They just might not be able to make the meeting. And really thinking about those members. So if somebody doesn't make a club meeting for several weeks, are we reaching out to them to try to find out why haven't you come? We talk about Rotary sometimes it's our second family. I like to think if I didn't show up at the family reunion, somebody pick up the phone and say, "Hey Pam, we missed you." But do we do that for our folks who don't make it to 3 or 4 club meetings? Like, "Hey, we haven't seen you in a while. Is everything okay?" So if somebody called me, I'd be like, "Wow, they really care about me." And we have some clubs when people don't come for, a couple months, they just kind of like, write them off and terminate them with the assumption that they're just really not engaged anymore. And then, you think about it, and then if they do leave, are we doing any kind of exit interview? Again, for those of us who are still working in our vocations, so when I think about the new Rotary member, much like a new employee, there's a path that they go on, and we know how they're successful they're going to be. But also on the flip side, we do an exit interview with those employees. What do we do? Exit interviews with our fellow Rotarians? Have we found out why they're leaving the club, why it might not be a good fit for them? And maybe our club isn't a good fit, but maybe we can help them find a club that's a better fit, that's more aligned with what their passions are. Because we're not all going to have the same passions. And that's okay. We just don't want to lose them, whatever their interest might be.
Good.
And then lastly, making the district relevant. And it's really not just District 6600, it is all districts. For 2 years, met with my classmates, incoming district governors from zones 30 and 31. And there's like 30 of us meeting with just Rotary International Director Brian Hall. And again, talking a lot about continuity, but also about how to make our district relevant. Because a lot of times clubs don't think that they need the district. And really, it's really about the district being able to provide the tools and the resources, that clubs need so that they can be better. And how do we create those tools and resources? When I came to the district, some of our committees had one person on them. I don't really think that's a committee. That's just one person trying to do a lot of work. So first of all, before we can offer tools and resources, we have to build up those committees. And then people would say to me, "Well, who are you going to appoint for the committee?" I'm like, "I don't know. I don't know 2,700 different Rotarians." But I think Rotarians are a lot like people in our communities. We have some people in our communities who are what we refer to as the homebodies. They're ones that go to the local grocery store. They really don't venture too far from, their county lines or their city lines, whatever makes them most comfortable. Just kind of stay close to home. They really don't care about seeing the great big world. Don't really want to travel. But then we have other folks in our communities who are adventuresome and want to venture out and either see the next city over, or the next state over, or the next country over, learn different languages and explore different food. And I really think Rotarians are like that too. I think we have Rotarians who are very content and happy with just being a member of their own club and don't want to visit another club and see what's out there. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But I truly believe we also have other Rotarians who would like to get more involved, who'd like to know what the club next door is doing. What is a district? What is a zone? What's a Rotary International Convention? And kind of, explore that. But how can somebody explore that if they don't know what those opportunities are? If nobody gives you the opportunity to raise a hand, if we don't open the doors, how can somebody else seek that? So one of the things we've been doing is sending out various emails like, "Hey, the public image committee is looking for people to help in different areas, and membership committee is looking for some different support. It'll be the Strive committee and with the youth exchange committee, because they all need help. We just don't know who wants to help. So this gives people an opportunity to raise their hand and get a little bit more involved, as much or as little as they want to. The committee also needs to be able to have two-way communication. So, you know, you should have seen 2 newsletters go out, just working on the 3rd one already. A lot of emails going out, making sure people know what's going on. We're getting ready to do a visioning day on the 25th of October. So some emails, I think another email will go out tomorrow. If you've not done the visioning survey, please do so. Because again, it's going to help, you know, 20 to 25 of your district members come up with a strategic plan for where our district's going to go and how we're going to get there. But we need everybody's feedback, you know, to be able to do that. And really just looking for the opportunity to create the space for collaboration. I come from a world where I think it's always better where we work together. It didn't matter if I was working with victims of crime or my United Way experience. But the more we can come together to work together, the bigger impact we can make. And certainly with the global grants and the projects you guys have done, you can definitely see the value of that. I mean, what one club can do alone doesn't compare what multiple clubs can do together. So we know that Rotary International President Francesco Rozzo reminds us that our impact grows when everyone is involved in everything that we do. A relevant district is one that clubs can rely upon, not just in theory, but in practice. So let's unite for good, not just across clubs, but within our district, because certainly when we move forward together, I know we move forward stronger. So as you reflect about why you joined Rotary, and more importantly, why you stay, I encourage you to hold on to that purpose and let that purpose inspire your next project, your next invitation to a new member, or your next bold idea. Because when you connect your why with your what, you'll bring your Rotary journey to life. So this year, I challenge you to do more than serve. I challenge you to unite for good and to lead with courage, speak with conviction, and to roar together for our clubs, our communities, and our future. And certainly, I thank you for all the really great things that you're doing, and I know that you'll continue to do to benefit all those communities that you all touch. So thank you.